Hello.
Hey Simone,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Really great. I'm a little bit stressed for this conversation, but I'm really
Why?
happy to have it. Why? I think it's a personal reason. It's because English is not my native language, and I've done interviews in English before, but it's the first interview I'm doing with someone I don't know before, and where I met for the first time during an interview, and it's in English. So yeah,
Oh, I see. Well, you know what's funny is that I actually don't know anything about you.
yeah,
Um,
I know.
and I usually don't ever do podcasts with other people. But something about what you said made me want to talk to you. And so I have no idea what to expect. I have no idea what your thing is. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. So it's going to be an unknown for both of us. But
Great,
thank you for inviting me. It means a lot to me that you wanted to have a solo conversation with me. I'm excited and I'm honored to have been invited.
good. What did I said that intrigues you?
I don't remember. It was something about the word soul. And people use
Oh,
that word a lot, soul this, soul that.
yeah.
And they make it mean whatever, but it somehow felt genuine coming from you. I don't know. I think it was
Okay.
just a vibe that I picked up on.
Great. So yeah, I discovered your work 6 months ago, and I've been really touched by your work. I've binge watched everything in 2 days, I think. I listened maybe 7 podcasts in 2 days, and after I've joined home, your program, and it's you're the first one on internet, I think, that bring me tears by your content. And I remember I've listened. You did a podcast which is I think something about rethinking how we navigate in the world of coaching of business or something like this. And when you spoke about um, rethinking how we are doing coaching, and not I'm the teacher, you are the one who listen, I will teach you, but coaching is like something where we all grow together if we are the coach or the coachee. And when I listened that, I started to have tears and I didn't know why, but it touched me deeply. So yeah, thank you for all your content. And if you don't know me, I'm just a coach in French, and what you're describing, I've been through because I I, I had a coaching business who was making 3 million per year, and I was really tired of that, and it fills my bank account, but it was a void for my soul. And you was the first one where I felt understood in what I was going through. So yeah, your work means a lot to me.
Wow, that's really amazing. Thank you so much for saying all of that. That's really everything to me because, lately by lately I mean, I don't know, the past couple of years, I've noticed something really interesting. I've noticed something really interesting where there's a ton of people who can help me. There are a ton of people who can teach me useful things and give me quote unquote value, right? But there are an extraordinarily small number of people who the best way I can describe it, I the word I use is thawing. Like when something is frozen and it's defrosting and it's like coming
Mm,
back to normal temperature, thawing. There are people whose transmissions make me feel like a part of me is thawing after having been frozen for a long time. And
mm,
it's a weird sensation. It's not like, oh, this is helpful, that's useful, I like that, I prefer that. It's not that. It's part of something that's been frozen for a long time, thawing and sort of coming back to life. And it I didn't even know how to articulate it when it was happening, but after the fact, I could describe it as, that was kind of like a thawing. And I realized later that what was happening is that it was my own humanity waking up from long sleep, and my spirit waking up. And you can say soul, right? Waking up after a
Mm.
long period of forced sleep, you know, because it has been dominated by my intellect, and it has been dominated by the part of me that has been conditioned by the external world, like my intellect and my will and my plans and my ego and my identity had almost like, forcibly put my soul to sleep, and it is now waking up. And I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense, but ever since I realized that, all I want to do is to have the same effect on other people, is to spark something that causes a thawing inside other people's
Mm.
souls and spirits, that makes them kind of wake up to, wait, where am I? No, who am I? Whoa, what is this? Like, where am I? That kind of feeling. And it has nothing to do with business goals. It has nothing to do with, winning gold stars from the world. And in a lot of cases, kind of chasing that feeling of coming back home to yourself, kind of thawing into your own soul, your own spirit. It has the opposite effect in the world as those that people usually chase. It might make you less popular. It might make you less money. It's definitely going in that direction. Has, I'm making less money, and I couldn't. I all I can think is I wish I had started on this path earlier, you know. And I still don't have the perfect words to articulate, but so much of this world asks us to um, give up our humanity to
Mm.
so we can be safe, so we can be accepted. I was just looking at, sorry, I'm just like going in a direction, like you can
Yeah,
you want me
but
to.
I love that.
I right before our conversation, I was just scrolling on Instagram, and I was looking. I randomly, came upon Instagram, wanted me to look at um this account of like an Instagram growth coach person, and this person was, teaching things like, how to grow tens of thousands of Instagram followers in just a
Mm.
few months. And here's are the constant strategies you need to do. And there are so many things that you have to do it like this, you have to do it like this, and all you have to do is one, two, three, and then you'll have these big numbers. And I was looking at it, and it was odd, it was like so hypnotizing. There was something really hypnotizing about it, and I was fascinated by the effect that it has on a human brain. And the underlying message in all of that is, how you can be safe is
Mm.
by amassing this many followers, right? And amassing this many sales. Like, this is where safety is. Come get your safety. And this is where your worthiness is. This is where the validation of you as a human
Mm.
being is. And it's on the other side of these content strategies, and that is the underlying message. And I think that's why it has a profoundly disorienting, disembodying effect when we spend a lot of time being steeped in that kind of content, right? When it's not dissimilar to, I mean, I don't think you are a woman, I'm a woman, but women and girls, we are brought up on magazines and images from the media of what a woman is supposed to look like,
Mm.
and to be worthy of taking up space, to be accepted, to be noticed, to be loved, to be safe, and so it's pretty much, this also applies to men, I think, but most people who are socialized as women live with this like persistent sense of like body dysmorphia, like my body is wrong,
Mm.
even though this is the body that I have, and I'm supposed to be more like this, my arm's supposed to be more like that, my face, and it's being conditioned into this profound sense of disconnection from who you are, and profound sense of dis-ease in being who you are. There's a dis-ease, and capitalism thrives off of your dis-ease, because when you are in that dis-ease, you will spend so much money
Mhm.
to try to chase some feeling of ease, safety, belonging, worthiness, the love, to the ability to be loved. And it was interesting. I was just thinking, I wish I could grab everybody on Instagram and like by the shoulder and tell them, hey, how are you feeling right now? Are you feeling a little bit disconnected? Are you feeling a
Yeah.
little bit of body dysmorphia, business dysmorphia, where you look at your business,
Mm.
where you look at your art and you're like, this is wrong. This is not right. This is supposed to be like this and that's supposed to be like that. Are you feeling that? That's how they want you to feel, because this is where you are most primed to spend money.
Yeah.
And then you spend money and they get rich and you feel even worse, kind of like when women keep paying for this and that to go on this diet, and that, like we don't arrive at the place of feeling, I now feel beautiful and worthy. Like that never happens. It's always, so I was just in that moment of like, oh my God, I wish I could grab everybody and tell them this. And so now I get to tell everybody who's listening to your podcast, if you're going to include this bit in the final recording, my unhinged rant about this.
And when you say I'm feeling now beautiful and worthy, it touched me. What what's what was the work that you have gone through to feel that? Because if we talk about the body and the being, I think it's the same thing with business. And you can lead with who you are only to the degree that you feel worthy inside and you feel beautiful inside and you're not feeling there is a lack somewhere inside you. So what has the work that you've been through and the most impactful work that have helped you?
Yeah, I think that's a big question, and obviously it's been a journey of many years, but I think
Yeah.
the best way I can summarize it for now is probably to say that um the modern world has been realizing that the modern world has been systematically created to um m- make me feel disconnected from my own humanity, right? Like all by when I say modern world, that encompasses so many big things, big ideas, like um, the impact of just worldwide colonization, right? It's not even small c colonization of like this country colonized that other country, which my country has been colonized in that way, but it's almost like a big C colonization where it's just a way of relating to other humans and a way of relating to the earth where um the the other is seen as a resource to be extracted from, and
Mm.
this ancient sense that humans have always had of our place in nature and our place in the spiritual ecosystem and our place in the community of other humans, right? In the village, in the uh, that humans have had an ancient sense of that since the beginning of human history. And it's only been in modern times has that we've been ripped from that web of relationality, right? Our relationship to spirit, relationship to nature, relationship to each other, relationship to body, relationship to our food, right? um it's all been destroyed to serve um imperialism and the industrial project and capitalism. And so it was really about um seeing how I have lost what I have lost, rather than like learning something new, right? And
Yeah,
so
got it.
I have learned about how, for example, uh, white supremacy that I had internalized and I didn't even know I had internalized, um, has put a film on my eyes so that I always saw myself as defective and less than, and that I would be somehow more worthy if I were to be more like white, which whatever that means, you know. And as a woman, you know, the patriarchy has conditioned me to see myself a certain way. And so once I saw all the films that have been placed in front of my eyes, all I had to do was try to peel those back to get to the reality of what's there, what has been there this whole time. Then it was no longer like an effort. It wasn't like a self-improvement project to love myself, because I saw that all I was, and this sounds a little bit corny to say, but all I was an expression of the divine. Like, I am divine, you are divine, our connection is divine. And anything else I could superimpose on that is an illusion, right? That sounds so corny, but it's what I have come to see. Um, and I think it's important that we look at it in that elemental way of like where we come from and who we are, and the web of relationality around us, be so that loving yourself doesn't become yet another self-improvement project, right? Or
Mm.
a project of fixing yourself, because you don't need to be improved and you don't need to be fixed, right? You just have to come home to yourself and to your
Love
own
that.
divine nature, which sounds so corny, but it's true.
And what's for the people that will listen to the podcast? What's your story about business? How did you start, and what has changed since in the way you're leading your business since the way you've started?
Okay, that's another big question. But you know what? I recently started thinking I don't really have a business, and I never really did. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. I don't think I ever really, I don't think I'm built like a business person. I don't think I operate like a business person. I think what I am is an artist and a writer who
Mm.
loves people and who wants people to suffer less. And at some point, I've realized it would be cool if, you know, people can give me money for some of what I do. And then I stumbled upon ways to make that happen. And then I got really good at making that happen. And then and then people started asking me for help to help them to get paid for doing their art and their writing and their thing in the world. And then I became like this like business coach person. Um,
When was it? When did you start charging money?
um, I tried to start charging money like in my mid 20s, and I'm in my late 30s now. And it I it's a lot of things, life, you know, and where I was at the time, you know, um it didn't really work in that way until I think this iteration of my work really began in my early 30s. So maybe I don't know, 7 6 7 years ago. um I think that's when I started to make a little bit of money, and then I made a little bit more money, and then I made a bit more money, and then I made a lot of money, and then I made a lot of money, you know. And then so I be and it was always like, how do I do the thing that I like to do, right? And then it was fun. It was interesting to see how people like started paying me, and then that became a thing, and then I became a business coach, you know. And more, and to the point where I was making the kind of money that everybody would point to as like that is the ultimate success story, right? And then there was, what was the like, I don't know if there was like one thing, but I started to ask a lot of questions about um hold on. I feel like there was something that, okay, I started to ask a lot of questions about um, the impact that my work was having as this big business coach person, and whom my work was including and whom it was excluding.
Mm.
And the larger narratives that my work was supporting in the world. And that was very uncomfortable. All of it was
Mm.
very, very, very uncomfortable. And I started to really
What what
sit with
what what was the narrative that it was supporting in your perspective?
yeah, like look how wonderful it is that I made so much money.
Mm.
I'm now better than you. I mean, obviously,
Okay, yeah.
I never intended, I never said it like that, but that was a, because the whole world says you'll be safer, you'll be worthier, you'll be more lovable when you have won the capitalism game. And I was very
Mm.
much, even if it's implicitly, unintentionally supporting that narrative by kind
Yeah.
of as a business coach person, like leading with this message of like, let's make more money. Even though like in my heart, I was like,
Mm.
it's all about like you know, in my I didn't think ever in my mind that I'm like, I'm helping people win the capitalism game. I thought I was always about the values. I thought I was always about the heart. And I was. At the same time, I was playing into a lot of the narratives um, that were alive in the larger culture and harmful in the larger culture. And when I look back and I really think it's because I carried the same wounds that everybody else is
Mm.
carrying. And I was operating from those wounds. And what I mean by that is a part of me did feel validated because of all my success. I did feel more important, not like an I'm
Mm.
better than you way, but in the sense of ever since I was little, I felt like an outsider. I felt like a misfit. I felt misunderstood and underappreciated and underestimated, right? And it's a common thing for people with ADHD, for neurodivergent people, especially those with ADHD. There's a persistent sense of like, I'm not living up to my potential and I'm failing everybody. I'm failing at myself. And that was a wound. That was a big, profound wound inside me. And so when I began to make lots of money, it was like a fuck you to everybody who
Mm.
didn't understand me, who didn't think I could do it, who thought I was weird, too much of this, too little into, I was broken because of ADHD. It was like, ha, now I have proven,
Mm.
that I am now worthy. And that wounding was driving a lot of what I was doing. And I didn't know. I would have vehemently denied that if you had told me that at the time. I wasn't ready to see it. We can't see things until we're ready to see it, right? And then I remember one time I was talking to one of my mentors, and I just broke down crying. I broke down crying because I felt so much love for the little kid inside me who says, I just want to know that I matter and that I'm not broken and wrong. And I just want to tell the world I'm not broken, I'm not wrong. And all of my, you know, not all, but like a lot of like what I was doing in my business was trying to broadcast that message to the world so I could have it affirmed within myself,
Mm.
right? And once I really saw that and forgave myself for it, and then you know, I apologized to people who felt harmed by the message that I was implicitly supporting, you know. Um, I I felt like I made changes in my business so that I'm no longer operating from that wound. Um, I felt free of well, I did feel free, but it was more like that it was like more like that wound had been healed and that inner child, so to speak, didn't need to be didn't need to be throwing a tantrum in that way anymore, because I can say, hey, guess what? Um, you never needed to prove that you are not broken because I know you're not. And you are amazing. And the only person who has to know that is me. And I know it. And so we have nothing to prove to anybody. And uh that was really the big turning point, even though it wasn't one turning point, it was like a
Yeah.
process. I documented all of it publicly. So it's not like one day I showed up, I was like, hey, have different thoughts now, And so since then, I've made decisions that I've leaned into the thawing, of my own humanity and my spirit, and really taking directions from a part of me that hasn't been conditioned by the world, that hasn't been beaten into submission by the fears that the dominant paradigms instill in us of you don't have enough, you're not enough, you have to go get more, you need more, not enough, more, you know. I'm human, so a lot of me is still vulnerable to that, but there is a part of me stronger than ever, bigger than ever, that is not impressed by that conditioning. And more I make decisions from that part of me, and it feels like home.
Hmm. Do you sometimes feel like you're regressing at sometimes? When I say regressing, it's like because I can totally relate with all you're saying in your journey. And when I'm with myself, I feel like I'm more like home than before, and I don't need this validation as I need it 4 years ago, for example. But it's like sometimes when I'm in a in a group where there is other successful businessman, for example, it's like I'm regressing to the old self that I need validation. It's like in some environments, I can be totally free to be myself, but with some other environment, it's like I'm regressing to the one that need validation. Do you feel like that, or it's with everyone you've like transcend that?
Hold on. Can you help me understand a little bit? Like when you say
Yeah.
regret with certain other people, like what do they make? What's the internal dialogue that comes up, if you don't mind
Uh,
me?
yeah. When I say regressing, the internal dialogue is like um, I'm scared of not being validated, not being. It's not validated. It's not being understood.
Hmm. Scared of not being understood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do,
but don't you
do
think
you?
that's normal?
Sorry,
Don't you think that's normal?
I don't know. And you? uh, I think that's normal. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
Ah,
think
yeah.
it's so
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
yeah, there's it's such a basic human yearning to
Yeah.
be understood, right? And I think it's just like a fact of life that not everyone's going to understand you. And there are plenty of rooms. Actually, I'm going to say most rooms that I walk into, I probably won't be understood. And it does it hurt my feelings? Of course. you
Yeah.
know, if I could wave a magic wand, everyone in the world would say, "We understand you, Simone, and we love you, and but I think, yeah, I think to answer your question, do I ever find myself shrinking in some places with some people? Of course, I think so. Yeah. And I
And
think
how do you manage that?
well, now I choose, I'm very intentional about where I am, where I put myself, and I'm also very
Yeah.
lazy. I don't move around very much. I don't seek out new people, new rooms, and I'm very intentional about curating my social media feed. So it's just like chefs and animals and dancers and comedians doing creative things. And I don't expose myself to things that, make me think those things. But when it happens, it's a vulnerable moment, and I don't think, I'm a very sensitive person, and I don't think I'll stop being a sensitive person until the day I die. And I imagine that no matter how old and wise I am, there's always going to be a part of me that's tender. And when I'm with other people, it says, oh, I just want to be understood. I just want to be loved, and I just want to be be witnessed in the way that I yearn to be witnessed, you know? And when that is not met, um I think you have to allow for the grief of that. And I think when you allow for grief, it doesn't turn into shame. You know, like I have a very human need to be understood, and that need is not being met right now, and that's sad, making me sad. And it's okay. Like some parts of life are sad. And if I allow myself to be sad about that, maybe even angry about it sometimes, that to me is a more honest human experience than um like yeah, like it turning into shame, and it turning into a thing of like, oh no, I'm wrong and broken, you know?
Yeah, really helpful as well. Yeah, it's really helpful to see that. And what have you stopped thinking or asking to yourself since you lead your business without the the child who is was trauma?
What can
What have you stopped to ask to yourself in the way you lead your business since you have healed the wounds
what have I
of
stopped
the child?
asking?
Yeah, yeah. Like because um I think we change not by doing something new, but by stopping to do things that we was doing automatically.
I see what you mean. I
And
see what
yeah,
what a fun question. Yeah, yeah, we change not by adding new things, but stopping doing what we were doing before. Okay. I think, okay, I think I stopped. Is it okay if I take some time to think about this?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
It's such a good question. I want to do justice to it. Um, okay, I am just gonna shoot my shot, and it'll just have to be good enough. Um, I think I stopped taking dictation from um from what the wider world consensus reality says is important, and says I should prioritize, and says um, I should want and strive for. Um, because you have to recognize when that's happening. Like, for example, let's say, okay, here's an example. Okay, so here's what the normal world has conditioned me to want. Okay, I have these sales goals for the next quarter that I want to meet, right? To be able to, you know, have the money that I want to pay for what I need and pay my team and have everything run and be able to do X, Y, Z, whatever. Okay. And for most, probably for most business people, this is how we operate. It's like the first thing on our minds, right? Like in the next however many months, next month, whatever, I want to make X amount of money. And that kind of drives the rest of the decision making, right? So that's how I had been operating as a default, because that's how I had been taught to operate. And I let go of operating from that kind of thinking that way, um, because what's more what's more important than having this arbitrary idea of what I think I need to make, you know, so that I can fulfill my, supposed arbitrary needs. Um, and I think what was more important than that, for example, in this example, was to ask myself what really needs to emerge during this time in my business, right? So what really needs to emerge from in this time from my business? That's an entirely different question from how do I make this amount of money in the next quarter,
Mm.
right? Because when I'm paying attention to what wants to emerge from my business, that's another way of saying what wants to emerge from my soul. Because my
Yeah.
business is an expression of my soul, right? What wants to emerge from my soul? That question does not give a single fuck about how much money I make. That question doesn't even give a fuck if I have a roof over my head. That is a radical question that just blows all of the conventional, paradigms and goals like into smithereens. That is a confronting, terrifying question. What wants to
Yeah.
arise from my soul in the next
Mm.
quarter, as opposed to how much money do I want to make? Okay, it took me a while to get here, but that's it, you know?
Yeah. And
Uh, mm.
are you doing this with like writing or doing meditation? How are you asking this
You know,
question to yourself?
it's more like there's always like a current of conversation inside my head
Yeah.
all the time. And it's like I think of it as an ongoing conversation with life itself and ongoing conversation with the current of creativity that's flowing inside me. And this is a horribly inconvenient thing, right? Because everything in my head logically says, okay, so given reality, this and that, you have to make this much money. And what makes the most sense for you to be able to make this money is to do this program and do this launch by this day. It just everything in my logical brain is screaming to do all the things that make sense, and when I ask what wants to emerge from my soul might say, um to go on a sabbatical for the next 3 months, or it could say, um read start reading poetry and writing poetry. That's really what's important, you know and then my brain is like, that is not an answer to what I
Mm.
need. My soul is like, actually, but it is though, and so there's a lot of that tug of war. And I had to stop letting the logical part of my brain keep winning. I had to kind of soften my grip on that, um as a way of kind of trying to ensure my safety. you know um our social safety might come from, um winning at capitalism and winning the popularity contest on social media, but our souls don't give a fuck about that. And our soul has a very different agenda for what it wants us to do. And I stopped, um being fixated on the one side, and I started, um paying a lot more attention to what does my soul want to happen, like what is my soul after, what wants to emerge now, what is the experience that, it's asking me to lean into. And it is a wildly frustrating way to be, because the argument with my logical brain is so strong. um but it's how I am increasingly operating.
Mm.
That also means, I have to, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that kind of encapsulates it. I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it give me another question about that, which is how would you describe the difference between um, listening to your soul and being sure that is your soul, and it's and listening to something which is another avoidance response. I will give you an example
Mm.
to be clear. Sometimes I have sometimes I'm not sure um, if I or my clients they are like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do this now. And sometimes it can be another avoidant response, like uh, it's I reject that and I want to be the opposite, but it's not really your soul. It's just you're you're not loving that and you're rejecting that, and it's a rebellion thing. And I have nothing against rebellion, but do
Yeah,
you grasp what that? Yeah, okay,
yeah, I think I know what you mean. I think that's a really
okay.
great question. And I think the thing is, I think
I,
you're
I
when it
just I would just precise something, which is I feel like sometimes we can tell ourselves stories about this is my soul, but no, it's
yeah,
just you playing small because you have fear that you need to
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, totally. So here's the thing about what your soul wants. Your soul doesn't give a fuck about your comfort.
Okay.
Your soul doesn't, and so if one direction feels more comfortable and that's what you think your soul wants, that, I mean, your soul might want that, but just know your soul has zero interest in your comfort. And by your comfort, I mean the comfort of the socialized ego self, right? Zero
Mm,
interest. Your ego even has zero interest in your pleasure.
mm,
Like by which I mean, okay, on a spiritual level, pleasure can be spiritual. Yeah, blah blah blah. Yes, I get it. I agree. But also, right? Like pleasure in the sense of like what you immediately find pleasing, as opposed to something that could be more uncomfortable, um it, it, once again, your soul doesn't give a fuck about your comfort. Your soul um your soul is not, how do I want to say this? I think one way is that the voice of your soul is never urgent.
mm,
If there is an urgent charge to it, like I have to do this and I can't do that, and that I think is something other than your soul.
mm,
To me, listening to the soul, in my mind, it's kind of like listening to the ocean. Like when you listen to the sound of an ocean. Um, it's it feels, for lack of better words, it feels vast. Like even when the ocean is loud, let's say there's like a storm and thunder or whatever, there is a kind of a vast, almost like a calmness even within the drama, because the ocean is so big that it contains all of it. Does that make sense to you?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like the ocean might be storming and there might be tsunami, but the ocean isn't freaking out. The ocean is just being the ocean. Oh, it's not there's like a grandness.
Mm,
I think that's more what I'm looking for. There's a grandness. There's a kind of immensity that inspires awe and reverence, right? And I think the voice of our soul is kind of like that.
mm. And
And I think, mm,
how this messages comes to you? Is it in the form of words, images, feelings, subtle sensation? How would you describe that?
I think it's all of it,
Okay.
like conversation with life, right? So a lot of the times I know it by the way I feel in my body.
Mm,
Um, I think the universe is giving us clues all the time, right? I think it's putting people and experiences and things in front of us to help us steer, like, is it this direction or that direction? Is this hot or cold? Getting warmer or cooler, right? So We just always have to notice. Um, it's a difference between, like let's say you've been scrolling on your phone all day, which makes you feel a certain way, whether as opposed to, let's say you've been, walking in the mountains all day in the stillness of the mountains, right? Like
Mm.
there's a different quality of
Yeah.
being where you can notice more of what's real, right? I really don't know how to describe that, but I think when
Yeah, I
I
got
make
it.
an analogy, everybody can get it, right? So it's like, okay, so get yourself to, for now, for convenience's sake, let's say the mountain, the ocean state, right? Where all the chatter of the socialized mind is less. Okay, then in that state, what is emerging from you? Where are you being pulled? What feels real when you're there? Um, which is why I think in order to kind of be able to better heed those cues, I think we need connection to spirit and nature and other human beings, right? So badly. I think it's really bad for us to exist in a vacuum of spirituality and nature, because it's like then we have lost the compass, of the thing that connects us to who we really are, which is we are spiritual, divine soul beings, you know. And I'm trying, I'm doing my best to live into this in my own life more, um, to touch people and to look at people face to face, eye to eye, and connect with them and touch them appropriately, of course, and to put my feet in the soil, and to, you know to tend to my spiritual practices, of connecting to the spiritual allies that I connect to. All of that orients me to be able to notice what my soul is saying. I guarantee you, I know from my own experience, it's really hard to pay attention to what your soul is saying when you've been on your phone all day, when you've been trying to, it's just steeped in a different kind of current.
You're doing it so well to connect face to face and connect eye to eye to people and to let them feel that. I guarantee you.
Well, that means a lot to me. But ideally, I'm actually brainstorming really like a lot actively on this, how to be with people physically more.
Yeah.
Like in the ideal world, I'd love to be sitting across, a table from you in a cafe having this
Yeah, for
conversation,
sure.
and just like I'd order my coffee, you'd order your coffee, we'd talk about coffee, and like that's life. It's humans connecting,
Yeah.
I want more of that. It's hard for obvious reasons. We live thousands and thousands of kilometers apart. And I live very far away from the vast majority of the people in my world. Not many of my people live in Korea where I live, but I want to, like, even, I live in an apartment building, and I've made the effort to, if I'm in an elevator with somebody I don't know, one of my neighbors. Isn't that so sad? I don't know any of my neighbors. Normally we just ignore each other, but I've made an effort lately to just look them in the eye and smile and say hello.
Mm.
And they say hello back. And that moment, again, that thawing sensation, like something about my own humanity is being restored back to me when I acknowledge the physical presence of another human being. We're like trapped in this little elevator together, and we're like both on our phones, like, hello, And so that stuff like that, it just restores, like, oh, this is what it's about. It's about being alive and it's being human together. Stuff like that. I want to meet people more in real life.
Yeah.
I want to engineer more ways of doing so that aren't hideously expensive for everybody involved, and is human and nourishing. And it's not like, here's an event where you have to dress up, and not like wear a name tag, not like that, but just people who can, I like dream of just being in a kitchen with people and like cooking with them and laughing with them, and talking about whatever, like with my people.
Yeah.
Dude, I want that to happen. I don't really know how.
I've read a book 1 month ago, which is the 2 hour cocktail party, how to transform a small gathering into big relationship. and it's about
Wait, 2 hour what party?
the 2 hour cocktail party.
Work hotel party?
No, the 2 hour cocktail
Oh,
party.
cocktail.
Yeah,
Sorry, cocktail
yeah,
party.
cocktail.
Okay,
Yeah,
tell me more.
and the subtitle is how to transform a small gathering into big relationship. And
Love.
the book is about how to regain this sense of belonging and real
I
life
need to read that
connections.
book. I'm
Yeah,
gonna write that down.
in a world of disconnection where
Mhm.
everybody is on social media. And yesterday evening was the first cocktail party I've hosted in my home, and it was so nourishing.
That's amazing. I want to be invited. Will you invite me to the next one?
For
That's
sure.
so
I,
that's
I, I
amazing.
will I will invite you for the next one, but it's in Sweden. It's in Switzerland.
Okay, I
But
might
you're welcome.
totally feel that. That's incredible. I'm totally gonna read that book. That's what I want. I want,
Yeah.
the thing is like the internet and social media, it's not our enemy. It's I what I realized is that social media should serve real life connection, not the other
Mm,
way around. You know, like you and I have connected. I have connected to somebody else. I've talked to like it should all lead to more of us being together. That way, social media becomes a servant of real relationships, not the other way around. And so, anyway, this is all stuff that I'm very thinking very actively about. And I'm so envious of those who live in Europe because
mm.
there's like all of your countries are squished together and you can like it's so easy for you to visit each other. Like I functionally live in an island, so um but that might just be a limiting belief. I'm gonna
Yeah.
try on some new beliefs.
Yes, because I was thinking the same thing about Switzerland, because Switzerland is small, and it's not really interesting to live in Switzerland for people who work in the internet, because the price of everything is 3 times
Yeah,
the price of France, and
yeah.
so nobody that works on the internet is living in Switzerland. But I give it a
Are you
try,
live in
and
Switzerland?
yeah, I'm living in
Oh,
Switzerland.
okay. Are you
Yeah.
Swiss?
No, I'm French, but I met my girlfriend who live in Switzerland.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm living here since.
Yeah, I don't think very many entrepreneurs, online entrepreneurs live in
No,
Switzerland.
no,
Yeah.
nobody. But but there is some cool people um outside online business.
Yeah.
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 Um,
Well, I'm gonna have to figure out ways to host them. And if I can figure it out, you're invited. If you can manage to.
yeah, I know nothing about Korea, and yeah, I know nothing about Korea, and
Hey,
I
get
was
with the times. It's very hip now. Korea is very trendy now. So you gotta get with the times.
what is specific in Korea about the culture and the business culture that is different than in US or in something like yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm not really the best person to speak on that because I'm not really part of the Korean business culture because I feel like my body is just in Korea and my family's in Korea, but I'm as you can hear in my voice, I'm very American and I do business with Westerners, and so I barely know anybody here outside of my family because I moved here as an adult to
Ah, where have you growing up?
I grew up in the US and in California, and
Ah,
as an adult,
okay.
I lived in New York City, and I was bopping around in Europe for a time, and I did spend a part of my childhood in Korea, so it's not like I've never been here before, but it had been so long. I was only here as a small child, so when I moved back, primarily because I met my husband here, and I was like, I was gonna get married to him and have a family. I knew I wanted to be here, and my family was here. So I'm glad I made the decision. I love living here, but I don't have any friends who are local. am not really plugged into any kind of community, which has become increasingly harder since I had a
Mm.
baby. You know how it is. So that has been what did you ask me? Business culture, right? So I'm not the best person to speak on this, but I do know that it's not the most friendly environment for um online entrepreneurs, or like solopreneurs, creative entrepreneurs, um because there's a lot less of a culture of it. And I think I think it's a lot more unknown.
Okay. What what what
Definitely
what is
not existing.
what is the dream of a normal Korean people?
It's because the economy has been so volatile, everyone just wants security,
Okay.
and everyone wants to make a lot of money, and everybody wants security. So, I think this is probably common across a lot of cultures, but people want to be, doctors, lawyers, accountants, like the sort of the safe professional jobs. And people, there's also a lot of competition to enter civil service and to become a civil servant, because that is you can't get fired. It's a secure job, and you get a pension when you retire. So it's, or some kind of, yeah, public um, employee. So it's I understand the reality, and because the security, there's such a premium on security. That's another factor that goes into, people don't really, entrepreneurship isn't really seen as
Mm.
desirable. It's kind of
Mm.
like, if
Mm.
you have no other choice, then I guess you can start a business. But like, why would you do that when
Okay.
you can have such secure income? And the kind of like this optimistic American idea of like this boundless potential of a solo entrepreneurship, like that's I think that's very American, right? It's not really a thing here. And but I do think it's a sad reality where everyone wants to be one of the same five jobs, you know, because that's not how we're made. Only very few people are built to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or a civil servant. And I think Koreans are, I mean, everybody is, but I think especially Koreans are such a spirited and creative people. And I feel like all that spirit and creativity is being squashed into
Mm.
machinery, of people like competing for the same five jobs, or work for LG or Samsung. That's
Yeah.
that's a good
Yeah.
job. Yeah, I kind
Okay.
of managed to escape the whole apparatus by, being sort of American at the same time. But yeah.
Okay. There's something I want to come back to, um, which is there is people that will listen to us and um, would say to themselves, "Oh, that's fine. That seems inspiring to lead your business with your soul. But now I have maybe a family and I have an income and I need security. How can I manage the transition from a secure business, something that is working, to something that there is where there is no predictability, because I feel like it's what you're describing. Your soul has no predictability. And
I have a very high risk tolerance as a person,
okay,
and I'm kind of like, I never care about making. I don't really think ahead, and for the better or for worse. So
yeah,
that's just personality, and I don't think the way I go about things is the only way or the right way at all. Like, and I have an intact life because I have people in my life who are more risk averse than I am. My
hmm,
husband is a very sensible person, and without him, I would be gone, right? And so yeah, I mean, in a way, they're right. Not everybody. I am propped up by a lot of good luck and privilege, and the truth is that if my family was depending on my income and I didn't have, a lot of money saved from years of business, I would probably feel a lot less free. That's the truth. I think it would be ridiculous to pretend otherwise. At the same time, I don't think it's so black and white. Like you either, play the capitalism game and lose your soul, or you follow your
Mm.
soul and go broke. Like I really don't think it's quite so stark. And I think wherever you are, I think there are ways. I think it's very rare. I think it's very rare that you following your soul is going to mean something dramatic and catastrophic for
Mm.
your bottom line. And I actually think that in the longer run, you following your soul in the short term it might feel destabilizing, but in the longer run, I think when you follow your soul, you're much less likely to burn out.
Mhm.
You're much more likely to do better work that attracts a higher caliber of people.
Mhm.
Um, and I think I don't know if you're more likely to make more money, but I think you're more likely to make money in a way that you actually enjoy and
Yeah.
it doesn't deplete you, right? So I think it's a false binary to have to choose between pragmatism and your soul, right? I said that your soul doesn't give a fuck about your comfort, but also it's not it's rare that it's going to lead you to like destruction, you know for the sake of the soul. Although I do think that happens sometimes, like when I think for really people with a really sort of advanced spiritual mission, like I think about that when I see people doing things like, people volunteer to be doctors and medical staff in Gaza right now. They don't have to be there at all, and they walk in there with their own 2 feet because they want to help. That is someone following the calling of their souls without any regard for their own safety and money and all of that. I don't think everyone is being called to do something like that.
Mhm.
And I can tell you right now, I don't have I can't do that. Like I'm not um but yeah, like that's not most of us. Most of us have a lot of easier assignment, but it's still an
Mhm.
assignment. We still have to live into the challenge of what it means to create the truest, most courageous life, for ourselves that is congruent with how our souls want us to develop, as opposed to what the world wants us to do so we can get gold stars.
Yeah. And can you tell us about yeah, I was really curious about um how you are so touched about what's actually happening in the world. And you spoke a lot about what's happening in Gaza and all of that. And you're the first one who um, bring me to have an interest in that. Because before I don't care. It's not my world. It doesn't touch me. I don't want to bring the image of a world where things uh, aren't go are not going well. I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to, yeah.
It's hard. It's painful. And the truth is that I'm not that well informed. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world that I don't know about, and I don't particularly go out of my way to research.
Yeah,
I only have so much capacity to be with the pain of the world,
yeah,
right? I think it's good for everybody to try to expand their capacity and to have more empathy, but also I don't think you can expand that capacity 10 times overnight, and everybody has a different capacity, depending on who they are. And so I don't think I'm some kind of like particularly, you know, heroic person in that regard at all. I have huge gaps of knowledge. And this just happened to be one of those things, like what's happening in the Middle East. I just happen to have a lot of Middle Eastern friends. I happen to have Palestinian friends. I happen to have many Israeli friends. And it's just something that I had been thinking about for a long time that mattered a great deal to me because of the humanity that it invokes in me because of the people that I know, you know? And so if I know it and it's real in me, then I can't bypass. But like there's a awful shit. It's genocide happening in Congo right now, and
Yeah.
I don't know much about that, and I haven't been able to speak much on that, and that is my failing. And also, um, I should be, and I'm working on expanding my capacity to be with that pain too. Because if we all just turn away because it's too painful, then what it could be me at
Yeah.
some point who's in trouble. And everybody else says like, oh, I don't want to look, then what happens to me? So I think it's a difficult line. Like we have to challenge ourselves without frying ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to care without burning ourselves out. And so and I think it is immoral for someone with a public platform if they feel something is important and they have a platform and they're not using it. And it's one thing if you don't know, but if you
Yeah.
do know and you know what's right and what is justice and what is not, and you don't use it, I think I understand why people don't use their platforms. I understand the fear because I'm human and I am fearful, and I get it. I get it. And also it needs to change. I think it needs to be normalized for everybody, with a platform to not even like use their platform for good, but use their platform to express more than like the one dimensionality of their business or whatever, right? Like, where's the humanity? Like, what else do you care about? You know, even if it's not necessarily about like world peace or whatever, like show us more about what you give a shit about. And if you give
Hmm.
a shit about what's happening in the world, then say something. Um, anyway, I don't like to
Yeah.
be moralistic about this, but but so much suffering happens because it's so easy for people to say, well, it's not my place to say
Yeah.
something, and it just keeps supporting the evil that's happening.
But you're doing it in a way that is really different that everywhere else, because you're the first one that made me think about my racism, about my condition for white supremacist
I really
to
have to really honor you for that and thank you, because it's very rare, because I shit on straight white men all the time, and it's very rare that a straight white man will stay long enough to pay attention, because they all just hate to hear it. And it's if you actually know what I'm saying, I'm never attacking individuals. I'm attacking
yeah.
the system of it that makes life so much easier for certain people and not others, and it makes the people who are in positions of power blind to what the system is doing to everybody else. So you're maybe one in like a million, straight white men who actually want to hear more about that. And it's I cannot even tell you how rare it is. It is my mind is actually blown right now, that you wouldn't automatically retreat into defensiveness and just say, oh, that woman is crazy, and what I would whatever. And then you're curious, and it made you think. That means everything to me. And I wish more men in the world were like you.
I recommend your podcast on where you was interviewing um, I didn't someone who was talking about the history of racism, and I remember that he said that it's easier to go in a war with people that we have um, people that have been um, um, dehumanized. Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand? Yeah.
I think, yeah.
And when I hear that, it was like, wow, I've been conditioned to think that these people are not human, and it was like a well, it was a mind blown for me, and I've advised to hundreds of people to listen this podcast because I think in Europe we have been conditioned to think that Musulmans are like evil, and they're not. Yeah.
That's all over the world, all over the world.
Yeah.
And that's one of people don't even think of it as racism, you know? Like if you like think about
Yeah.
like prejudice against like black people, Africans, they people know it's racism. But I think prejudice against Islam, I think it's much more socially acceptable.
Yeah.
Um, so thank you for that was an amazing episode. Thank you so much for listening and for caring. It's we need more people like you. Not to entirely celebrate you and leave it at that because you have work to do too. With you have power and influence that you can use. But it really is incredible and you're incredible and thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there a last message that you would love to say to the one that you was 10 years ago?
10 years ago I was 28 and I was in the worst relationship of my life. And I was so unhappy and I didn't know who I was and I didn't know how what a beautiful human I am and I had so little belief in myself, so little. And if I could talk to her, you know what? It's weird. You asked me what I would say, but I don't really want to. I don't have words. I would just want to like hug her and tell her with my body like everything I want to communicate to her. That just I want to like squeeze her and somehow through the body through telepathy um let her know that um the answers aren't where she's currently looking
Hmm.
and that again it sounds so corny but that she herself is magical and that she doesn't have to settle for all the messages that are coming at her about her worth. And that sounds both really vague and corny and cheesy, but um, I think a lot of people are in a position where like they can be given a lot of advice, they can be given a lot of like wisdom and insight, et cetera, et cetera. But I think what I needed then and what a lot of people need now is for someone to not try to teach them anything, not try to give them advice about anything, but to really, really be with them and to be present with them and see them for who they are. You don't even have to say anything. I swear, you do not have to say a word. But if you're present with someone and you see them, you see their soul, you see their beauty, you see the power inside them, you see that they're made of magic and divinity. If you see that, I swear it'll change them, even if you say nothing. If they never hear your voice, I think it changes them. I would hope for everyone listening, you know, for myself too, right? For all the humans, for you, for everybody, that we get to be that person for someone else and that we get to receive that from someone else. We don't need wisdom, tips, advice, insights, blah, blah, blah. I think we need people to see us. And that's what I like to give to myself 10 years ago.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simone.
You're welcome. It's weird. It's like that was a weirdly like vulnerable experience. Not really vulnerable, but like, it's rare that people probe that deep, with me because I'm usually the one asking questions, right? Because I'm coaching and whatever. And so
Yeah.
you really like made me dig, and that was it was interesting. Super fun. And I gotta go run to make dinner now,
Yeah.
but um let me know what happens to this and whatever. It was so fun getting to meet you, and I'm so glad to be connected.
Thank you very much, Simone, and looking forward to stay connected to with you in the future.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, stay in touch. Okay.
Bye bye.
Okay, bye. By the way,